In a world where conflict seems constant, from global wars to our own inner battles, peace may sometimes feel like a distant dream. But what if peace isn't just the absence of war? What if it's something we build, live, and nurture, in ourselves, in our relationships, and in our world? In this episode, we'll journey through the foundations of peace, its definitions and key thinkers, the four components that sustain it, and the cultural frameworks that make it a living reality. So before we can truly live and build peace, we first need to understand, what exactly do we mean when we say peace? Is it simply the end of conflict, or is there something deeper? Let's begin by exploring the different definitions and concepts of peace. When we talk about peace education, we must first ask, what do we really mean by peace? Peace has been defined in many ways throughout history. Some describe it as freedom from war or hostilities, that state in which a nation or community is not at war with another. Others see it as the ratification of a treaty between two opposing powers, a formal end to conflict. In civil life, peace can also mean freedom from disorder or disturbance. A sense of public order and security. In personal terms, it can mean calmness, freedom from disturbance or inner turmoil. But the meaning of peace did not stay the same over time. It evolved, shaped by human experience, by war, and by injustice. In the early secular view, peace was understood simply as the absence of war. This idea was expressed by Hugo Grotius in 1625, who defined peace as nothing more than the absence of direct violence. It's what we now call negative peace. In Latin, the word pax literally meant peace, but for the Romans, it simply meant the absence of conflict. It didn't necessarily mean harmony or justice, but rather a state where wars had stopped and order was maintained, often through power or control. For example, during the Pax Romana or Roman peace, there were no major wars, yet inequality and oppression still existed. So, in early history, peace was understood more as the silence of war, not yet the presence of justice or true harmony. And for a long time, this was the dominant goal of most governments, to maintain peace simply by avoiding warfare. However, this early definition was limited. It did not take into account social injustices or the human suffering that exists even without war. Think about it, a country may not be fighting a war, yet its people may still face economic inequality, discrimination, or chronic poverty. So even without bombs or guns, violence can still exist, in the form of injustice, oppression, or denial of basic rights. This is what peace scholars later called structural violence. By the 1960s, peace researchers began challenging this narrow idea. They argued that peace is not only about ending war, but also about ending the conditions that make war possible. This gave rise to a structural understanding of peace, highlighted by thinkers like Hicks, 1987, who pointed out that millions suffer from poverty, starvation, and preventable diseases not because of war, but because of unjust social, political, and economic systems. Today, we distinguish between two major kinds of peace, negative peace and positive peace. Negative peace means the absence of war or direct violence. It's when guns are silent, but deeper issues, like injustice and inequality, remain. Positive peace, on the other hand, means much more. It is the presence of justice, equity, and human well-being. It involves creating just relationships, ensuring social and economic fairness, and respecting the dignity of all people and even the environment. In short, positive peace is not just the absence of conflict, but the presence of harmony, empowerment, and justice. So when we study peace, especially in the context of peace education, we are not only studying how to stop wars, but how to build societies that are fair, inclusive, and sustainable. Because peace, in its truest sense, is not just about silence after conflict, it's about justice that endures. Now that we have a clearer understanding of what peace really means, it's time to meet the thinkers who shaped how we understand peace today. When we study peace education, it's important to learn from the scholars who laid its foundation. Two of the most influential names are Johan Galtung, often called the father of peace studies, and Castro Galace, who helped deepen the understanding of peace within the Philippine context. Let's explore what each of them taught, and why their ideas still matter today. Johan Galtung, known as the father of peace studies. A Norwegian sociologist and mathematician who founded the field of peace and conflict studies. He believed that if we only look at peace as the absence of war, we miss the deeper roots of violence in society. That's why he introduced two of the most important concepts in peace theory, the theory of positive and negative peace, and the triangle of violence. According to Galtung, peace has two dimensions. 1. Negative peace. Simply the absence of direct violence, no war, no physical conflict. However, injustice, inequality, or discrimination may still exist. Example, a country may not be fighting, but its people may suffer from hunger or oppression. In other words, negative peace is fragile. It's peace that only exists on the surface. 2. Positive peace. Goes beyond the absence of violence, it means the presence of justice, fairness, and equality. It's when people's basic needs are met, their rights are respected, and they live with dignity and security. Positive peace requires changing unjust systems and promoting harmony in relationships. So, when we build positive peace, we are not only stopping war, we are transforming the structures that cause suffering. That's why Galtung's work reminds us that true peace is active, not passive. It requires effort, empathy, and social change. To explain the complexity of violence, Galtung also developed what he called the triangle of violence. He said violence has three interconnected forms. Direct violence, what we can see. Physical harm, war, killing, abuse, or any act that visibly hurts people. Structural violence, what we don't easily see. Caused by unfair systems that create inequality, like poverty, discrimination, or lack of access to education. Cultural violence, what we often accept without realizing it. Harmful beliefs, traditions, or ideologies that justify inequality or discrimination. Galtung explained that these three are connected. For example, cultural violence can justify structural violence, which can later lead to direct violence. So, if we only stop direct violence but ignore the deeper structural and cultural causes, peace will never last. That's why peace education teaches us not just to end conflict, but to transform the conditions and attitudes that produce it. Why is Galtung's theory important? Because it helps us understand that violence is not only physical, it can also be social and cultural. Recognize the deeper causes of conflict. Realize that building peace means transforming unjust systems and healing relationships. His theories guide peace educators, policymakers, and citizens to see peace as more than just no war, but as a process of justice, equity, and transformation. In Philippine context, let's look at the contributions of Castro and Galace, 2010, Filipino peace educators and authors of Peace Education, A Pathway to a Culture of Peace. Their work builds upon Galtung's ideas, but they rooted it in the Philippine experience, a country with a long history of social inequality, conflict, and resilience. They defined peace as freedom and equality, health, happiness, and security, creative personal development, and the absence of abuse, war, or fear. For Castro and Galace, peace is not just about ending war, it's about creating the conditions for people to live fully and freely. Their perspective emphasizes that peace must be holistic, touching the mind, the heart, the body, and the community. Castro and Galace teach that peace is both a goal and a process. It's about promoting justice and equality, solving problems without violence, respecting human dignity, and building relationships based on compassion and cooperation. In short, peace is something we practice every day, in our homes, our schools, and our society. Both Johan Galtung and Castro and Galace remind us that peace is more than silence after conflict. It's the presence of justice, the practice of compassion, and the pursuit of equality. To build lasting peace, we must address direct, structural, and cultural violence, promote fairness and dignity for all, and Live by values that nurture harmony and understanding. Because in the end, peace is not only what we hope for, it's what we choose and create every day. After understanding the wisdom and theories of peace scholars, let's dive into the heart of peace itself, the four interconnected components that sustain a true culture of peace: harmony with God, ourselves, others, and nature. Each of these components is deeply connected. When one is missing, our peace becomes incomplete. But when all four exist in balance, that's when true and lasting peace begins. The first component is harmony with God. In a deeply religious country like the Philippines, faith is central to how people experience peace. A strong relationship with the Creator brings inner calm even during life's most difficult moments. Practices like prayer, worship, and spiritual reflection help us find refuge from the chaos of the world. Believing that God is love, and that love and compassion should guide our actions, give strength and hope in our lifelong journey toward peace. One inspiring example is the EDSA People Power Revolution of 1986. During those tense days, the streets became not just a site of protest, but a place of prayer and faith. People held rosaries, sang hymns, and believed in divine protection, and remarkably, the movement succeeded without armed conflict. It stands as a global symbol of nonviolent resistance and the power of spiritual conviction. The second component is harmony with the self, our personal well-being and inner balance. This involves peace on four levels. Physical health, taking care of our body through food, rest, exercise, and stability. Emotional well-being, freeing ourselves from fear, hatred, and worry. Mental clarity, having purpose, focus, and a clear conscience. Spiritual peace, acceptance, self-love, and integrity between one's values and actions. When we are at peace with ourselves, we gain calmness, self-acceptance, and resilience, qualities that help us face life's challenges with strength and dignity. A powerful example is Dr. Jose Rizal. His self-discipline, intellectual focus, and inner peace allowed him to face oppression and even death without hatred. Rizal's harmony with himself gave him moral courage, making his life and sacrifice timeless. The third component is harmony with others, rooted in the Filipino concept of kapwa, or shared humanity. Peace is relational, our well-being is tied to the well-being of others. Within the family, peace grows through love, unity, and mutual support. In the workplace, it's nurtured by responsibility, respect, and cooperation. Among friends and communities, peace thrives in kindness, forgiveness, and understanding, even toward those who are difficult to love. And in society at large, peace depends on social justice, equality, and solidarity, free from oppression and discrimination. We saw this beautifully after Typhoon Yolanda, Haiyan, in 2013. Despite devastation, people came together through Bayanihan, helping one another rebuild homes, share food, and restore hope. Filipino peace is deeply relational, it's about healing together, not alone. The fourth component is harmony with nature, often overlooked yet essential to lasting peace. The environment sustains our health, livelihood, and very existence, but when nature is harmed, through pollution, deforestation, or exploitation, human suffering follows: illness, poverty, and displacement. Peace cannot exist in a damaged environment. Violence against nature is also violence against humanity, especially for indigenous communities who depend on the land for survival. The Chico River Dam struggle in the 1970s and 1980s is a clear example. The Kalinga and Bontoc peoples defended their ancestral lands from government dam projects that threatened their rivers and forests. Their resistance wasn't just political, it was spiritual and ecological. For them, protecting the land meant protecting life, culture, and peace itself. These four components, harmony with God, self, others, and nature, form the foundation of holistic peace. They are deeply connected. If one is broken, for instance, if we exploit nature or live with inner turmoil, peace in the other areas is affected. To educate for peace, we must nurture all four dimensions, strengthening faith, self-understanding, compassion for others, and respect for the earth. Only then can peace become not just an idea, but a way of life. Now that we've seen peace as a balanced way of living, let's take it further. How do these ideas take form in real-world systems and education? To answer that, we'll explore how UNESCO and peace educators developed powerful models that guide societies toward a genuine culture of peace. What is a culture of peace? When we talk about a culture of peace, we're not simply describing a world without war or violence. This idea first took shape at the International Congress on Peace in the Minds of Men held in Yamoussoukro, Côte d'Ivoire in 1989. A culture of peace means a set of values, attitudes, traditions, and ways of life that encourage people to live together with mutual respect and harmony. It's about how we think, feel, and act, how we resolve differences, treat one another, and care for our shared planet. In other words, peace is not just something we achieve, it's something we live. A culture of peace includes certain core values and attitudes: respect for all life, rejection of violence in all forms, appreciation of diversity, sharing and cooperation, and the ability to listen to understand, not just to reply. It also involves protecting the environment, committing to solidarity, and resolving conflicts peacefully. In short, peace is a way of being, doing, and living. And like any skill, it can be taught, learned, and strengthened, through peace education. Why peace education matters? To build a culture of peace, we need education that helps people understand how violence affects individuals and societies. Develop nonviolent skills like dialogue and empathy. Promote peaceful attitudes and behaviors. Peace education is, therefore, not optional, it's the foundation of every peaceful society. A culture of peace is not a final state we reach once and for all, it's an ongoing process. It involves lifelong learning and constant engagement in imagining and creating peaceful communities. As societies change, new challenges appear, and so our approach to peace must also evolve. It's a journey of transformation, not a destination. It's important to understand that a culture of peace does not mean the absence of conflict. Conflict is natural, it's part of being human, especially in diverse and pluralistic societies. The real question is, how do we deal with conflict? If it's managed with respect, understanding, and fairness, conflict can actually become constructive, leading to new ideas and solutions. But if it's ignored or handled violently, it becomes destructive and deepens division. So, peace is not about avoiding conflict, it's about transforming it. Now that we've explored what a culture of peace means in general, let's look at how global educators and organizations have tried to structure and promote it through different frameworks. We'll begin with UNESCO's framework for a culture of peace. When we talk about peace, we often think of the absence of war. But according to UNESCO, peace is more than that. It's about building conditions in society that make peace possible, through education, respect, equality, and justice. This is what the UNESCO framework for a culture of peace is all about. The idea of a culture of peace emerged from UNESCO in the late 1980s. In 1989, during the International Congress on Peace in the Minds of Men, held in Yamoussoukro, Côte d'Ivoire, UNESCO called for peace to begin not just in governments, but in the minds and hearts of people. 10 years later, in 1999, the United Nations General Assembly adopted the Declaration and Program of Action on a Culture of Peace, which provided a concrete framework to achieve it. The core idea. UNESCO's vision of a culture of peace is rooted in the belief that peace is not just the absence of conflict, but the presence of justice, equality, understanding, and human dignity. It's about transforming the way people think, act, and relate, replacing violence and domination with dialogue, cooperation, and mutual respect. UNESCO identifies 8 key areas for action that guide individuals, communities, and nations in building a culture of peace. These areas address not only conflict but also the social, political, and economic roots of violence. Peace through education. Peace begins in the classroom, where learners develop values and skills for peaceful living. Democratic participation, ensuring that all people have a voice and equal role in decision-making. Human rights, promoting respect for human dignity and freedom. Sustainable development, linking peace to poverty reduction, equality, and care for the environment. Gender equality, empowering women as essential agents of peace. Understanding, tolerance, and solidarity, celebrating diversity and dialogue. Participatory communication and free flow of information, ensuring transparency and truth in society. Promotion of international and local peace and security, supporting efforts to prevent war and strengthen peacebuilding globally and locally. The strength of the UNESCO framework lies in its comprehensive vision, combining personal transformation and social change. However, one limitation is that it focuses mostly on external structures and less on inner peace, emotional and spiritual well-being. This is where later peace educators like Dr. Virginia Kawagas and Dr. Suihin To expanded the framework, giving rise to what we now call the flower model of a culture of peace. The flower model of a culture of peace. Imagine a flower. Each petal represents an important value, and together, they form the complete picture of peace. Developed by Dr. Virginia Kawagas from the Philippines and Dr. Suihin To, a Malaysian-born peace educator and UNESCO Peace Prize laureate, 2000, the flower model reminds us that peace must bloom from within and radiate outward, just like the petals of a flower. Introduced in 2002 as a response to the UNESCO framework, the flower model emphasizes personal transformation. While UNESCO focused on institutions and systems, the flower model teaches that peace begins within the human heart before it can grow in society. Its central theme is educating for a culture of peace. Structure of the model. Picture a flower with 6 petals surrounding a bright core. The core represents education for peace, the foundation that nourishes every other dimension. Each petal stands for a key area where peace can be cultivated. Dismantling the culture of war. Cultivating inner peace. Living in harmony with the earth. Promoting human rights and responsibilities. Living with justice and compassion. Building intercultural respect, reconciliation, and solidarity. Summary of the petals. Each petal reminds us of a vital aspect of peace. Dismantling systems of war and domination. Healing the self through mindfulness and compassion. Protecting the planet as part of peace. Balancing rights with responsibilities. Promoting justice and empathy for all. Uniting cultures through reconciliation and solidarity. When all petals are nourished, the flower of peace blooms beautifully. The flower model connects inner peace with social transformation, something missing from earlier frameworks. It tells us that peace is not just an idea, it's a living, growing process that begins within us and blossoms outward into the world. Now that we've seen the flower model's emphasis on inner and outer harmony, let's move to a more holistic framework that combines both, the integral model of peace education. Peace education continues to evolve, and one of its most holistic approaches is the integral model of peace education. Developed by the University for Peace, UPeace, with Central American governments, this model integrates the inner and outer dimensions of peace into one balanced framework. The integral model teaches that peace must be lived at multiple levels, within ourselves, with others, and with nature. It sees peace as interconnected, shaped by how we think, feel, and act. Its structure resembles a mandala, a circle symbolizing wholeness, balance, and unity. 3 dimensions of peace. Peace with oneself, cultivating self-awareness, mental health, and emotional balance. Peace with others, building relationships grounded in respect and compassion. Peace with nature, caring for the planet and recognizing our interdependence. Together, these dimensions represent harmony between humans, society, and creation. 4 levels of peace learning. The integral model outlines 4 interconnected levels of peace learning. Ethical level, developing a sense of right and wrong guided by justice and empathy. Mental level, understanding the causes of conflict and peace theories. Emotional level, cultivating emotional intelligence, empathy, and compassion. Behavioral level, practicing peace through action and daily choices. At the center of the mandala is the self, surrounded by rings representing relationships, community, and the environment. This design reminds us that true peace radiates outward, from personal transformation to global harmony. Why it matters. The heart of the integral model is alignment, when what we believe, know, feel, and do are in harmony. It teaches that peace education is not just about learning information but living transformation. Each learner becomes a potential peacemaker, contributing to a ripple effect, from self, to society, to the world. The integral model of peace education calls us to live peace as a way of being, to align our ethics, our minds, our hearts, and our actions. Because when peace becomes a lived experience, not just a lesson, it transforms individuals, communities, and eventually, the world. We've journeyed from understanding peace as an idea, to seeing how it grows through education, relationships, and culture. But peace doesn't end in theory, it begins with you. Let's summarize on what we've learned. From the early definitions of peace as mere absence of war, we've seen how peace thinkers like Johan Galtung expanded our understanding, teaching us that peace must also mean the presence of justice, equality, and dignity. The ideas of Castro and Galace further remind us that peace is deeply human, rooted in freedom, health, happiness, and creative growth. Then we learned that peace isn't just external, it's personal and relational. It begins with harmony, with God, oneself, others, and nature. When one of these is missing, our peace becomes incomplete. Finally, we explored how peace takes root in society, through frameworks like the UNESCO Culture of Peace, the Flower Model by Kawagas and Toe, and the Integral Model of Peace Education. These remind us that peace is both an inner transformation and a collective responsibility. True peace, then, is not a destination, it's a continuous journey of becoming. It's how we think, how we act, and how we choose to live every day. As we close this lesson, let's take a moment to reflect. Peace isn't built by grand gestures alone, it grows in small, conscious choices. Every time we forgive, listen with empathy, or choose kindness over anger, we are building peace. So here's a question I'd love for you to think about, and share in the comments below. If you were to design your own model of peace, what would it look like? Would it begin within the heart? Flow into the community? Protect nature? Or all of these together? I'd love to read your insights and reflections. Thank you for watching Social Studies Simplified, where we understand the past, engage the present, and shape the future. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more lessons on peace, history, and humanity. Until next time, keep choosing peace.